Welcome in, welcome in. Not sure what happened there. I was live before. I didn't really see many people joining from TikTok, so I guess I had an issue on TikTok there. It ended the stream. I covered a couple of topics, but not sure what happened. So that's okay. That's okay. We can still get back to it. So let's jump through. Let's jump through the rundown here, because I'm not sure how much was actually on TikTok. All right, so the topic for this week is, do you want to be first or right? So this is a weekly sports show. I go live every Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I go live on X, TikTok, and Twitch. And then also my replays are released Sundays at 11 a.m. on YouTube. And then since I do a longer stream, I make sure to get timestamps in there. So if there are certain clips that you just want to go to, I'll get those timestamps in there. So when it releases, you have those so you can jump to those spots. So I don't think I'm going to play some of the clips I played earlier because I don't know how I should be able to at least put that video out. So we're going to just keep things moving on along. So firstly, does the media want to be first or be right? I gave the NBA Finals update already. It's a great series so far. Not going to dive too deep into that. Coach Prime can express how he feels. We got more stats from OTAs. Some of the Cleveland media is forced to say that Kenny Pickett and Dylan Gabriel not doing as well as they might have expected. And then we got comment creeping. So you will get to see some of the comments that I see that people comment on my TikTok page based on the videos that I put out. So a lot of times I think that people are just not watching the whole videos. I try to not let my TikTok videos go more than a minute, 30 seconds. But I see people comment and I'm like, man, there's no way you watch this. So we'll get to those, some of those comments towards the end of the show. Something I want to show you though. Let's see. Let's get you here. Let's take that thumbnail down. Or we got that thumbnail down. So one thing I want to let everybody know. I'm not going to beat you over the head with ads, but I just want to keep you up to date on some stuff that I'm working on. So I got accepted into the Fanatics affiliate program. So if you want to help the channel, go to my X account and click on the pinned post, and you'll see a link to my Fanatics. Get whatever sports gear you want to get, something that you're already going to do. It's just a way where you can help the channel grow. And then also when you click on that link, whatever deals that Fanatics is offering on the website, you'll still be able to use those deals as well. It's just one way that you can support and help the show. Also, something else I worked on this week, right here below my bio on my X account, if you click on my link space, you can see this is my second logo here. You can see my Fanatics links to all my socials, and then also Streamlabs Ultra. So I use Streamlabs for all of my streaming needs, and then you can get a free 7-day trial if you click the link here. So just putting that out there. I'm not going to beat you over the head. Probably twice a show. I might just, let people know what I got going on when it comes to like the affiliate programs and ways that people can help the show. But I know what you're here for, so I'm not going to turn this into, me just trying to sell things the entire show. So let's get this thing moving forward. So I'll get the replay of the first 30 minutes of the show that, some people might have missed. I'll make sure that's up tomorrow, 11 a.m. Let's get the screen up so you can see it. Let's take you down. All right, we're not showing. That's okay. There we go. We got it up on the screen too. All right, there we go. All right, so if you watched my show before, you know that a lot of times I'm looking at situations and I'm looking at things that the media does and the media says, and I'm more so critiquing the media and not necessarily taking the digs and the shots at the players like the traditional media does. So this episode is going to be no different. We're going to take a wider view. We're going to look at some national media. We're going to look at what it means. We're going to react to Aaron Rodgers signing with the Steelers. We're going to I'm going to ask some questions to the audience, and let me know, you can answer in the comments about 40-plus-year-old quarterbacks that played for a team for over 10 years, what they've been able to do going to other teams. So we're going to go over that. Then we're going to get to, of course, Coach Prime and how everybody missed the question that Asante Samuels asked Coach Prime, and that's the reason why he answered it the way he did. So we're gonna get to that later on, and then also we're gonna get to how the national media is looking at Shedeur. Then we're gonna go look at some of the Cleveland media and how they're looking at Shedeur after the OTAs, and then we'll end the show up with comment creeping, where we'll go look at some of the comments I get on my TikTok. So this is the first thing we have here. So in this clip, very useful all the clips I use tonight. This is gonna be Stephen A. Smith. They're gonna be talking about Caleb and what they want to see from Caleb. So this is Stephen A. Smith. Let's go.
20 touchdown passes, 6 interceptions, sacked the league high 68 times, 16 more than any other quarterback in the National Football League. You're damn right they needed to do something. They did it out of necessity so they could maximize this kid's ability. Last season, he was on suicide watch. Couldn't even protect him. That's what you were doing to him. So this year you did it. You got a new coach, Johnson. You buffered your offensive line. You got some additional weapons. We get all of that. But if this brother goes out and he's doing this thing and he looks like a number one quarterback, you know what? You still going to find yourself saying, okay, yeah, we got a number one, but damn, why did we not win more games? You got to win some. I mean, part of what defines you as a top-notch quarterback is your ability to win games. You both know this better than me because I don't cover the NFL. I mean, I talk about it, but I don't cover it like y'all do. I rely on y'all, you see. My point to you is this. Don't tell me that you established yourself as a number one quarterback when you're not winning some more games. Part of the criteria is your ability to close the deal and win games. Unless you sitting up there and averaging 35 points a game and your defense is so horrid, so porous that it's...
All right, so that's Stephen A. They're going in on Caleb Williams and what they want to see from him in year 2, how everything has changed around Caleb Williams, and hopefully it's changed for the better. They got Ben Johnson, an offensive-minded coach. They got Matt Eberflus out of there. And just things didn't go as well as they should have went last year. And I think there was more organizational issue of why things went the way that they went last year. Now, that was Stephen A. Now, Kimberly Martin is going to push back on Stephen A., and we're going to listen to her reasons why she's pushing back on Stephen A. So let's get to that portion of it. Let's go here.
Problem. Ooh. Because this is essentially going to be a redo of his...
Let me go back. I started just a second too late, I believe. Let's go here.
I'm tweaking him. But in all seriousness, Stephen, I think you're being part of the problem. Ooh. Because this is essentially going to be a redo of his rookie season. Because what we saw last year with the changing in the coaching staff, why a lot of people were surprised that Matt Eberflus even kept his job in order to draft Caleb Williams. So there's a question of should the coaching staff have been in place to begin with? Then you bring him in, you bring in Caleb, then you fire Eberflus. All of this is, you can't set up a rookie this way. And then in year 2, when you've changed the coach, offensive system, and the team, and then say, okay, now you better ball or else. Mm-hmm. Like at some point we have to be realistic and be.
All right, so we got the gist of what Kimberly Martin is saying there. I agree. When you're changing up so many things around a second-year player, especially a quarterback, how can you hold them to the standard of they need to just go to the playoffs or it's a bust a year when they were in such a bad position last year? They had question marks about people actually showing him what to look for on film. He had a desire to get better, and they didn't have leadership in place to help him maximize his potential and get better. So I think it's unrealistic to throw that expectation on him. So when it comes to that, I definitely agree with Kimberly Martin. I agree with her there. I'm glad that she pushed back on Stephen A. You can tell Stephen A. was surprised that she pushed back on him, but this is how it needs to, not how it needs to happen. I'm not going to say that, but it's good that this happened because now Stephen A. might be more conscious and aware of, okay, you push back on me. Could I or should I or can I look at this in a different way? So I think that was good. I wanted to show that to show you that even people in the media are pushing back on other people in the media based on how they are reporting on stories, based on how they're putting pressure on these young guys, second year in the league, to be the savior of a franchise that has a history of not doing well. So that was a great pushback. That's why I wanted to add that there. Next story we're going to get to. I don't really need to change the topic that much because most of this is fitting under that theme of be first or be right. But I am going to put the thumbnail back up because we're going to, for a second here, we're going to speak on Aaron Rodgers. So Aaron Rodgers announced that he's signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He signed for a guaranteed $10 million. The maximum value of the contract is $19 million. He's in Pittsburgh now. I'm a Browns fan. What does this mean to me as a Browns fan to see Aaron Rodgers signing with the with the Steelers? I'm sorry. It means nothing. Now this is the point where I'm going to do some speculation, and then I'll back it up with historical context to show you why. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to take the Pittsburgh Steelers any further than Russell Wilson took the Pittsburgh Steelers last year. Aaron Rodgers, towards the end of the year, he did play better, but he ended the year 28 touchdowns, 11 picks, one of the higher amounts of interceptions he's thrown in his last, couple seasons where he's played a majority of the games. So you can see him kind of tailing off a little bit. Also, Aaron Rodgers is above 40-plus years old. If you bring that into how you look at the Browns and people say the Browns shouldn't be wasting time on a 40-year-old Joe Flacco, how then can you applaud the Steelers with a 40-plus-year-old Aaron Rodgers? It doesn't make sense. So I don't think it makes a difference. I think he'll get them same place as Russell Wilson, playoff berth out in the first round. Once it gets down to it, they're not going to beat. I don't see this moving the needle enough for them to go and beat the Kansas City Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills, the Baltimore Ravens, and potentially, depending on how their defense does, Cincinnati Bengals. So it's an upgrade over Mason Rudolph. You can say it's an upgrade over Will Howard since he is going to be a rookie. But does it mean anything else? No. I actually think this is a bad thing for the Steelers. So if next year's draft class is a heavy draft class on quarterbacks, and every year you can pencil in, it's going to be about 5 teams that need a quarterback every year, give or take. So if 5 teams need a quarterback, the Steelers do what they did. They're picking in the 20s. They're not getting one of those top 5 quarterbacks. Even if we go back 2 years where we had Caleb, Jaden, Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, and what's the quarterback for Bo Nix? They were all gone by around picks 12. All those guys were gone by picks 12. So if they have another season where they make the playoffs, it's going to mean they're in the exact same spot they're in now. So I think this is one of those situations where Mike Tomlin wanted to maintain his record of, so many, never having a losing season. It means so much now, but it's not helping the team. It's helping them to just be mediocre where they can't get that reset. And, they're just going to be what they're going to be. Now, that's just my personal opinions, my personal views, and how I speculate how they're going to do. Let's look back in history. What quarterbacks have played 10-plus years for one team and won a Super Bowl with another team? I wish I had like a Jeopardy timer where I could just put the timer up. I don't have a timer. I was looking to see if I had any other sound effect I can use as a timer. I don't have a good one, so I'll give you all a second. I'll give you another 5 or so seconds. We'll look at it. We'll watch the clock and see how it goes. All right, that's another 5 seconds. It's 2 quarterbacks have done this. The 2 quarterbacks are Peyton Manning when he left the Colts and he won in Denver. Remember, they had an outstanding defense in Denver when he won. I don't see the Steelers defense being close to that defense that they had in Denver. They beat up on Cam Newton in the Super Bowl. Then Tom Brady. Tom Brady did that with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after he left the New England Patriots. They had a great offense. That first year that Tom Brady was there, they spent draft capital to upgrade their offensive line, and they had a decent receiving core. Mike Evans was younger, and they had a solid defense, and it proved it in the championship when they beat the Chiefs. And that was the first time Mahomes looked pedestrian in the Super Bowl. Defense did it. So it's already a low likelihood that you're going to be able to do it being a 40-plus-year-old quarterback playing for a different team than you already played 10 teams for, 10 years plus for another team. When they did it, those two quarterbacks had historically great defenses. I don't see the Steelers having this historically great defense that you can't score on. Look what Buffalo did to the Steelers defense last year. I don't see the Steelers defense being a lot better than they were last year. Buffalo had no problems with them. Buffalo had no problems with them in the playoffs. So when you look at it like that, you're like, that's probably not adding that much. Then another stat for you. It's only been one quarterback in history who is over 40 years old to win multiple playoff games. Do we know who that is? Ding, 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 ding. Tom Brady. And we can't say that Aaron Rodgers the last couple years has looked as good as Tom Brady. We just can't say that. It's not there. We don't see it. So with that being said, I think whatever Steelers fans, they need something to be happy about because they're not trying out Mason Rudolph every week. But I just see them stuck in mediocrity. That's where they're stuck. They're stuck right there. So that's what I have to say about Aaron Rodgers signing there. I was going to play some clips for y'all, but there's no point in me playing clips of people who are just kind of repeating the same things that I'm saying when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. Let's get this off. All right, so there's been a renewed interest. There's been a renewed interest and renewed talk of why Sheduer fell, teams taking him off the board. Even on my TikTok, I noticed like people were commenting that all these teams took him off the board and things like that. And to me, this was news. This happened. It's not new. Excuse me. It's not new news. So I just looked at it like, these are things that people know already. So like I even had somebody commenting on one of my posts saying that. So I posted about, I believe that people I believe some NFL decision makers, they misread or misjudged Shiloh and Shedeur. And I put up a video about it, something I spoke on last week. And that video, someone commented on it saying, kind of insinuated that I was making excuses for people, which I was like, I don't think I'm making excuses for them. I haven't made any excuse for anybody who passed on them because it didn't make sense to me. But someone else commented and was saying, hey, Boomer Esiason said this. And I spoke on this at this point. I spoke on this over a month ago, I want to say. So yeah, I spoke on this a month ago where Boomer Esiason was saying, I reposted it on my, I put the video back up, but there's a new interest. So there's going to be some things that we're going to cover. So I've been responding to people and letting people know that there are things called smoke screens that teams put up, and there are mind games that teams play when it's around draft time and leading into the draft. And we're in this weird place where if you don't like Sheduer, you just blindly believe everything they say he did in the interviews. And if you like Sheduer, you question the things they said he did in the interviews. So it's a weird space. It's kind of people just fall on either side of it. So I just had to dig through the crates and go back to some of the videos. I probably played this before on my live streams I can't remember, but I knew exactly where to go. So I got 2 videos back to back, Mike Florio, where they're talking about what teams do pre-draft. So we're going to get this going. Here is the first one. These are short videos. I can't remember. We're probably going to need to play about 2 minutes of each. We're going to see, but fair use for all the videos I'm using tonight. This is the first one. This is Mike Florio and Sims, and they're going to be talking about the topic of this, how teams do mind games before the draft. So let's get it.
Think affects the reality that everyone has an agenda in advance of the draft, and it affects the things they say, and they may even deliberately try to manipulate people in the media to repeat things that they would like to get out there. And sometimes the media goes along with it unwittingly, and I think sometimes the members of the media allow themselves to be used for future considerations. So they'll keep the pump primed for information down the road or favors or whatever. That's how the sausage gets made. I'll give you an example of how this fact that everybody talks to everybody, it becomes like a game of telephone where information gets passed from here to here to here. Oh, and it sounds good. And, oh, hey, how about this? Let's talk about this. And nobody ever takes a step back and says, wait a minute, what are we doing here? I'll give you an example. And obviously.
All right, so y'all hear that there? That's Florio. He's saying that sometimes people are being used with the message that they're putting out. They are kind of being used intentionally, and they're buying good grace for more stories down the line so they can be the ones to report it or break the news. And then also he's saying they're playing a game of telephone. Everybody knows the telephone game. Everybody played this in grade school. You start at one end of the line. You whisper in the person's ear, 1 + 1 = 2. I did this math on Saturday night. You say it to the next person. The next person said, 1 + 1 = 2. I did this math. You say it to the third person. 1 + 1 = 2. I did the math today. Say it to the next person. 1 + 1 = 2. He did the math today. Next person. 1 + 1 = 2. I don't know what else they said. Then, by the time the telephone, it gets to the end of the line, the only thing they have is 1 + 1 = 2. So that's just an example of how he's saying that can happen when he's using a reference to somebody playing telephone. And for some reason, like I was saying earlier, people who don't like Shedeur, they are believing whatever the message is as it gets to the end of the line without questioning it. People who do like Shedeur are questioning and saying, this doesn't make sense. So I went back and I posted 2 videos of the breakdown of Todd McShay, because Todd McShay was the first person who broke that teams didn't like Shedeur. He was the first person. And I remember before the draft, I was breaking out everything Todd McShay was doing, because whatever he was saying, nobody else was saying it. And he wasn't even saying it clear. So I was like, I don't understand what's happening here. This doesn't make sense. He couldn't clearly articulate what team said to him. And I thought that was an issue. He was jumping back and forth, whether things were good or whether things were bad, if they were unprofessional, if they weren't. And it just made no sense. So that's kind of the example that Florio's talking about. So it gets to the end of the line, the story is not even the same. The story means something totally different. So now we're going to get to another video from Florio. So that's the first one. You hear he's talking about the smoke screen. He's talking about the mind games, and he's talking about how people intentionally use the past information to build up good graces with the team, which I think that happened in this draft. And that's why I've always been asking questions. I've been asking a lot of questions about this. So the next video, let's get it. This is the next video. Now, he's going to say something that I've been saying needs to change in how stories are reported. And the reason why I've been saying this is because I have questions. So now let's Let's listen to Florio. Let's see what he says. Fair use.
That's how Woodward and Bernstein happened with Watergate, brought down a president. And anonymous sources are important because people know things that they can't put their name to. They know facts that they can't tell the world they're sharing. It will complicate their lives. It will get them in trouble. It could get them prosecuted depending upon the quality and the nature and the source of the fact that they're sharing. That line gets crossed all the time when it comes to the NFL draft as it relates to anonymous opinion. And there is a danger in giving someone the ability to unload with opinion negative on a prospect. I don't like it. I won't do it. And I wish that others would follow that lead. Bob McGinn, venerated longtime reporter, covered the Packers.
We're going to pause him there. So listen to what he said. He said he will not report anonymous negative opinions. What happened to Shedeur? Anonymous negative opinions came out prior to. None of it was, they couldn't say what he did. It was even one story that came out and said, oh, he made me feel small. That's opinionated. That's opinion-based. What did he do? Did he do something wrong? When nobody can concretely say he did something wrong, that's when I'm like, hey, we got to question this. So that's the beginning part of it. Let's let Florio, let's let him cook. Let's see what else he got to say.
He does it every year. I don't know that he did it this year. I haven't seen much of it. But anonymous scouts with these blatant and over-the-top at times negative opinions in an industry where we know, and it's well established, that there are going to be people out there who really love a guy, and they're going to spread all this negative stuff to try to manipulate the board to get him to fall so they can get him.
I know.
So
yep.
I think when we're talking about opinion, negative opinion about draft prospects, I think we collectively, as reporters and analysts, need to insist that they put a name on it or we're not using it. And I say that because, and this comes from the league's own media outlet, NFL.com. Tom Pelissero.
I'm going to pause him right here. I totally agree with that. So when people say they're letting people say what they want to say anonymously because that's the only way they'll get the information. If you were telling me this guy ran a 4.3, it's a fact he ran a 4.3, but you want to stay anonymous because you want it to be unofficial, that's cool. If you were telling me he didn't run well and you are not attaching your name to it and you're not giving me anything concrete of what happened, how can we let this person hide behind anonymity? It makes no sense. These guys who do this are destroying kids' dream. And they're doing it for reasons where they can have beef with a person's father. They can have, not like the school they came from. Just because something is the standard doesn't mean the standard can't change. We watch so many things change. We used to think about this. When many people in my age range, we used to wait certain days of the week, you would have 4 shows in a row that you would watch on regular TV. It might be Martin. It might be, I can't think of the name of it, where the dude was a garbage man. It might have been The Cosby Show. It might have been In Living Color. But you had to sit there and wait for that show to come on. You couldn't record that show unless you had a VCR to record and you had a blank tape or you was recording over somebody else's stuff and you had to wait for it. And that's how we consumed our entertainment when it came to TV. Saturdays, we used to get a game, NBA on NBC. Ahmad Rashad used to have a show that used to come on 30 minutes before the game. He would interview players, interview athletes. They'll be doing practice stuff. He'll be getting to know them. And then we were going to the game, and you'll get that Saturday afternoon game. And that was your NBA game that you was watching. That's how we consume content. And that's how we consume sports. Then you get to Sunday. You watching the teams that they put on. You watching your local team if they're playing on CBS or Fox. And then you watching the Cowboys at 425 because they was always on national TV. That's what you consumed. We don't consume content like that. We don't consume sports like that. We don't consume media in that way. We're not entertained in that way. All these things have changed, but we still let people hide behind the anonymous tag when they are downing people, and it's all opinion-based. It's not like people were saying this person failed the SAT leading into college, which could be a fact that you can find out if it's true or false. They're not saying that this person was arrested in college. They're saying, I don't like how this guy showed up to an interview. That's a totally different thing. That person should not be provided the protection of being anonymous. In any industry, that is gone. We don't allow people to be anonymous anymore. I don't talk about politics on here. They put out how the House and the Senate vote. When somebody's running for presidency, they go back to their history of how they're voted. They don't get to put all that stuff and make it, private. When we have any situation that we look at now, people put their name on things. People put their face on things. When you're watching me, you're seeing my face. I wouldn't have people watch me if I was just hidden behind some mask or something like that. So to reap the benefits of whatever you're doing, you have to put yourself out there. And this is something that's going to have to come into the world that we live in now. How can we say we don't offer people to be anonymous basically in anything else? I'm not talking about criminal and court things like that, but in anything else entertainment-wise, except for sports. And it's the most used in the NFL. And it's the most used in the NFL around draft time. How many anonymous stories do we hear throughout the NFL season? How many anonymous stories do we hear throughout the NBA season? So things can change if there's enough people who are willing to say, that was the old standard. Just think about this. When we used to meet people, you had to write down a phone number and hope you didn't lose the phone number and hope you got the numbers right when you wrote it down so you can get home. And when you eventually called that person, you had to hope everything was right. Then you had to call that person and say, "Hi, Miss Johnson. Can I speak to your daughter?" And then the mom is like, "Who is this? Where you know her from? How did y'all meet? How old are you? Who are your parents?" All those things. That's not how things happen anymore. So everything is moving forward. Everything is changing. Everything we do happens differently, but we still let anonymous people ruin the biggest days of somebody's life for stories. We can't do it. Let me let him finish. I want to. That's my TED Talk. Let's let Florio go.
Shedeur does one of these every year, and it's like open season. Say whatever you want about the prospects, and I'm just going to copy and paste all of them into one document. So some stuff gets in there that I think Shedeur Sanders, Deion Sanders, anyone named Sanders has the right to be pissed off about.
Oh, right.
An unnamed. Here it is. Here it is. And this is it. This is used in the article. And I'm sorry to put Pelissero on blast, but sometimes that's the only way to get people to stop. Because I guarantee you, if I did something like this, I'd get dragged for it by awful announcing and whoever else is out there to drag people around, okay? Pelissero says, from a long-time NFL assistant coach, Sanders was the worst formal interview I've ever been in my life. He's so entitled. He takes unnecessary sacks. He never plays on time. He has horrible body language. He blames teammates. But the biggest thing is he's not that good. Now, there could arguably be a fact in there somewhere, but it's mostly 95% opinion. and it's a grossly negative opinion, and maybe that person truly holds that opinion. But I believe we as media should never grant anonymity for someone who's going to use that anonymity to say something like that.
Right. I hear you.
So you see it. So first I showed you Kimberly Martin. She's pushing back on Stephen A., calling him out, saying he's part of the problem. Now here you have Florio. He's pushing back. He's saying Tom Pelissero, he called him out by name and said, you got to stop this. So when I say these things, that this stuff needs to change, people just look at it and say, oh, you're just, this small streamer talking about sports. Your voice doesn't matter, or your view doesn't matter. But then you have people who have covered the game for a long time, been in the game for a long time. Now they are starting to push back and say this is ridiculous. So if you don't believe me, do you believe them when they say this, that this shouldn't be allowed? Push back on me, but do you believe them? He's pushing back on the NFL. The NFL.com, that's where the article was posted. He's saying, Coach Prime, Shedeur, they have a right to be upset about that. And he said, where were the facts in there? They didn't say he took this many sacks. They didn't say he held the ball too long in these situations. They said basically he's the worst football player they ever seen. And when he showed up, they didn't even like how he walked through the door. They said, you know what? We don't even like how this dude breathes. He don't breathe right. How can we continue to allow things to go that way? Hey, if you don't take it from me, that's cool. That's cool. I get it. You say, oh man, you got to put some more work in. You got to have a bigger channel, bigger voice, bigger reach. That's cool. But then what do you say to them? What do you say to Kimberly Martin when she pushed back on Stephen A? Right on ESPN, and you saw Stephen A was like, oh. What do you say to Florio when Florio's pushing back? And he's saying, hey, they got legit reasons, and he's pushing back on the NFL. What do you say to them? Because you can't just come at them and say, oh, they're just a small channel. Now you got to face the substance of what they're saying. You got to face the substance. That's where people don't want to go. People don't want to face the substance because if you don't like Sheduer, you don't care that they dogged him. If you do like Sheduer, you defended it saying that's messed up. But it shouldn't even be in that. We shouldn't even be in that position. That person should not have been granted the opportunity to be anonymous and say all that opinion-based stuff. Hey, if you don't agree with me, that's cool. You say, oh, you just, you don't got the reach. That's cool. But what are you going to say to people that have the reach who come to the same conclusion? That's the question. Should it be allowed? Should it not be allowed? I think people should stand on what they say. And if you can't stand on what you say, because Florio broke it down in the other video, sometimes you're going to be anonymous because the information you have can be, he was kind of leaning into things legally. But when it comes to sports, if I think Kenny Pickett is not the best quarterback on the Browns, I say it. I stand on it. I don't change it. I put it out there with my face. Kenny Pickett might see my video and be upset and be like, what this dude? He don't know what he's talking about. But he knows how I feel. and it's not coming from, somebody, some meme on the screen. It's not a real person. And I think that's what people should do. Because if you can't stand on what you say, why are we listening to you? So that's my second TED Talk. We made it through 2 TED Talks. We're going to get to the next subject. So the next subject is we got a lot of people who reacted to Coach Prime going on Asante Samuel's podcast, Say What Needs to Be Said. And this is how people, it's 2 examples of this that really happened this week. This is the only one I'm going to get to. This is how people, they are not listening to understand the question and they're responding to what's happening. People are watching things and just ready to rapidly give a response, and they're not listening to the question. So fair use of all the videos. Shout out to Coach Prime and Asante Samuel for getting this interview done. But we're really going to break down how this thing started. And I'm going to go back and forth. I'm going to play how it started. I'm going to play the question. I'm going to give my view on if I believe Coach Prime has the right to express how he feels. We're going to get to what other people say and how they view it. Then we're going to come back to the question and play the question again to see if the way these other people view it, if it matches the scenario and the situation. So let's get it. This is Say What Needs to Be Said with Asante Samuel. This is him interviewing Coach Prime. Fair use, and shout out to y'all for getting together for this interview. Let's go.
Yeah, I can get the next level. And I think a couple people who may have taken shots at my kids, they were afraid that I would go to that next level. And that's where the shots came from. All you got to do is just sit back and listen. And watch.
That's all you got to do.
But people don't want to do that. They want to create these narratives and create these stories and then attach them to a kid that ain't never done nothing wrong.
Yeah. How does that make you feel when you see your colleagues or your peers going in on you, man? Like, how does that make you feel?
We're going to stop it right there. That is the question. How does it make you feel when you see your colleagues, when you see your peers going in on you? That's the question. We don't even have to get the Coach Prime to answer yet. That is the question. How does it feel when you see your colleagues and your peers going in on you? Now we're going to jump ahead. We're going to go to somebody else speaking on this subject. So here we go. So this is the Herd. Kyle Herd is on vacation. So he has Jason McIntyre covering for him. And this is Albert Breer. I believe I have the right spot where they're going to be speaking on the question that we just saw Coach Prime get asked.
Dealing with his father piping in now, and Dion went on a podcast, was kind of, he said it hurt him that his son slid in the draft, even though his son admitted it was his fault. Now, listen, some people are not happy with my take yesterday that Dion needs to kind of zip it, lock it, put it in his pocket. Yeah. Just don't talk about your kid anymore. I know that's tough for people to stomach, but that's kind of the reality, isn't it?
I agree. I mean, like, I think that's what it is. And like, look, like I know a lot of people have made a big deal out of, what happened 21 years ago.
Are we going to stop them right there? Because what they said don't even matter after that point. So you heard Jason McIntyre basically say, shut up, that's your son, but just deal with whatever happened to him. You don't get to speak on it as a father. That's what he said. Oh, I know people might not agree with it, but that's what he said. Albert Breer immediately agreed with him. Let's go back to the question. Now, I'm going to move this back a little bit. So this time, we're going to play the question, and we're going to play his full response. Remember, Jason McIntyre and Albert Breer, that's after this full thing was out. So it wasn't like they just saw like a little promo clip that came out, because the first thing that happened with this interview, the entire interview came out first, and then they clipped it later. Sometimes with podcasts, they will put out like little filler clips first, and they'll highlight certain things to get the excitement up, and then they will release the full interview. This did it in the reverse. So they can't even hide behind the fact that they didn't have all the information. They had all the information when they spoke on it. We're going to go back just a little bit, and this time I'm not going to cut them off. I'm going to let Coach Prime give his answer to the question, because what they said is ridiculous on the other show.
Shots at my kids, they were afraid that I would go to that next level. And that's where the shots came from. All you got to do is just sit back and listen. And watch.
That's all you got to do.
But people don't want to do that. They want to create these narratives and create these stories and then attach them to a kid that ain't never done nothing wrong.
Yeah. How does that make you feel when you see your colleagues or your peers going in on you, man? Like, how does that make you feel?
I'm going to repeat this question again. How does it make you feel to see your colleagues, to see your peers going in on you? That's the question. Here goes the answer.
Idea, man. You have no idea. Like,
because I don't think people be understanding, like, I
That's
got
just-
kids too. These are our kids. These are our kids.
Blood,
We're
man.
coaches, but
Blood.
these are kids. This is our
Yeah,
blood.
kids. And stop lying. Like you got to understand, my kids are built for everything. We had 2 TV shows. Then we had shows in high school with playing football junior and senior year. So we've always been in front of the camera, so they know how to navigate. They know how to handle themselves.
Yeah.
And you're not gonna catch them in no foolery and no mess. You're not gonna do that whatsoever. So when you sit up there and say something like he went in a meeting unprepared, like, dude, Shedeur Sanders, who's had 6 different coordinators, who has still functioned and went up, leveled up every time we brought somebody new in, and you're gonna tell me
Every situation.
You're gonna tell me he had on headphones, Shedeur. Anybody know my son? Understand he's a professional. Like, he's gonna go into a meeting with headphones on. Like, y'all, come on.
You know what that tells me, Coach? That tells me somebody was looking for something before they even came there. I was already looking for something.
Yeah, that's
looking
true.
for an issue, pre-planned. You know what I mean? But hey, bygones, bygones. Hey, man, we know you a dog. Your kids.
All right, I'm going to say my part, but I got a comment here. I'm going to read it to y'all, and then I'm going to respond to the comment. This has got to be the slowest development take on the situation. So S on TikTok. I'm going to take you back to the title of this show. The title of this show is, do you want to be first or do you want to be right? I don't care if something happens slow. Do you want to be fast and wrong? You tell me. You tell me. I'm going to take my time to break down situations right, and then we're going to be right in the end. I'm not going to be coming back cleaning things up. Jason McIntyre is wrong. His whole take on the situation is wrong. Ta-da! We got the answer. See, people want things microwaved to them without even getting the full situation. This is what I was saying earlier, where I'm saying people are responding to my videos. They're not watching it. They're not listening. If you don't like how I break down the take, go somewhere else. Thank you for being here. Peace out. Enjoy the rest of your night. It's Saturday night. Go enjoy yourself. I'm going to break it down this way because nobody else is taking the time to break it down this way. What people are doing is people are just picking a side and they are not looking at the full situation. How many times do you see me put my foot in my mouth because I'm just jumping to conclusions and not watching things as they play themselves out? That's the difference. I don't mind being slow. That's cool with me. Does that change the fact that once we played it, we played their response, and we came back and played his full answer? Was their take right? You tell me. Do you think Jason McIntyre was right? Do you think Coach Prime was not in the right for answering the question that way? You tell me. Give me your take. Invite me to your show. Let's talk about it. It's people who are in the arena, who are playing the game, who are doing it live, and who are giving their views on things. And there are people who are sitting in the stands trying to tell people who are actually in the game how to play the game. I'm in the game, baby. You on the sidelines. If you want to get in the game, invite me to your show. Let's talk about it. If not, keep watching me slowly break down this take. Shout out to you. Now, once we played that all the way through, you get to hear that sometimes in the media wants to create the narrative. They want to tell the story. They want to hurt people. They want to mess up people on draft day. They want to give these smoke screens. They want to say all these things, ruin people's, situations, ruin the second leg of people's lives. And then they want you to just move on like it didn't happen. That's crazy. That's insane. These people got kids. You can't tell me these people wouldn't respond if this was the stuff that was happening to their kids. You can't tell me it wouldn't. People would respond the exact same way. So that's to show you they were just wrong. That was an L by Jason McIntyre. That was an L by Albert Breer agreeing. Asante Samuel asked that question. He has a right to answer. Coach Prime didn't go on a tour of hitting all these podcasts explaining how he felt about this. He waited till somebody asked him the question, then he answered. That's the difference. If Coach Prime was on tour like Shaq is, going to different podcasts talking about the situation, then maybe it will be a little bit more right on their view of it and what they were saying. If not, 100% wrong. 100% wrong. Because he isn't bringing light to the situation. That was an hour-long podcast. He was asked a question. He answered the question. When do you get to a point where you being asked a question about a situation and you honestly responding, and that's an issue? When do you get to that situation? I guess Jason McIntyre's opinion and his view of the situation matters more than the people who actually went through the situation. Because he's telling them, just, hey, shut up and deal with it. I got one more. Let's see. I got one more clip here. Now we're going to get to, so we got to how Coach Prime responded. We got to the question that was asked that even made him respond. Now we're going to get to, this is going to be Get Up. This is after it came out. Get Up is going to talk about this situation. And when Get Up talks about this situation, Greeny is going to keep asking people very direct questions that everybody's going to dance around. So let's get to it.
It's indisputable. But Tim Hasselbeck, let me make a case to you as one, you know, obviously having been a quarterback yourself, how the dynamics of all of this work. There are a lot of different ways this could have turned out for Sheduer once he fell out of, let's just say, the third round. One of them is a team that has Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts on it could have said, you know what, he's a good value at this point, let's just take him. At that point, he has no chance to play. Instead, he got taken by Cleveland, which is a team that we thought needed a quarterback going in, and you just ran through the list of names that are otherwise in that room. Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, with no disrespect to any of them. It's not like any team in the NFL is saying, boy, I really envy them having those options at their disposal. So my counterpoint to what everyone else is saying, Tim, is this. If Shedeur Sanders had been, if everything else was the same, but he had been drafted in the second round where we expected him to be, and all the other people were still there, we'd be expecting him to win this job. And I'm not, maybe not week one, maybe they give that to one of the veterans, but eventually to become the quarterback. And I still believe that the path to that exists because nothing about him changed besides the number next to his name in the draft. Tim, what are your thoughts?
Greeny, to your point, you're exactly right. Going to a spot that does not have an entrenched starter is a benefit to any quarterback because at least there's opportunity. If you go and be if you go to Buffalo, you're just there to be Josh Allen's backup. If you go somewhere else that doesn't have an entrenched starter, you have a chance. That's the glimmer of hope. And to your point, if you're a second round pick that goes to a place that doesn't have an entrenched starter, then you presumably become the starter at some point. Look at the Tennessee Titans and Will Levis. That's exactly what happened. Like that's just, they didn't have an entrenched starter. He was the second round pick, if I'm remembering correctly, and guess what happens? He becomes the starter. That is what happens. Now I would say this, there's a big difference between a first and second round pick. Well, first off, there's a big difference between a first round pick and everything else. Then there's a big difference between being a second round pick and a sixth round pick. When you're a high draft pick, look, oftentimes you're just anointed the spot. And that is for every position, quite frankly. Like if you're a second round corner, I got news for you. The street free agent's not going to get as many reps as the second round corner.
He danced all around that question that Greeny asked him. He asked him a very direct question. Nobody really wants to answer that question because even though Shedeur fell in the draft, he fell into a good spot. He fell into a quarterback room where you don't have a solidified starter who is locked in and they're going to be the number one regardless of what happens. So he actually fell into a good spot even though he fell in the draft. I had somebody saying that to me on TikTok. They were saying basically, oh, he fell and this and that. And I'm like, okay, he fell, but even him falling, he still has the potential. He can work his way into being a starter this season. So how was that an L for him? It's about opportunity. If he would have went and got drafted by Buffalo, backup. He would have went and got drafted by Philly, backup. You're not even going to get a chance to show what you're capable of. And we're talking about he got the opportunity to be a starter at some point this year. That's totally different than what the circumstances could have been. So he's taking a long time dancing around like all these different, reasons why, how, and all this stuff. But he's taking a long time to get there. And I even sped him up, and he's still kind of dancing around it. So I think that's all we need from that clip. I got another clip coming up. So now we're going to get to OTAs. We had more stats come out this week about OTAs. But the reason why I'm playing this is because James Jones, he called his wide receiver coach, and he just asked him, hey, when we're in OTAs, what are you looking for? So this is what Sheduer needs to show so he can eventually get the opportunity. So fair use, let's play this.
Your talent. That's what it is, right? I had an opportunity because I knew this talk was coming up, so I reached out to my coach, Jimbo, right, my receiver coach when I first got to Green Bay, and I said, what are some of the things you guys look for in OTAs? He said, number one, can you grasp the playbook? He said, because as we go to install 1 and we finish OTA number 10, all of our offensive install is in, right? All of our signals are in. So if you can handle that and you're showing your ability, he said, now once training camp came, I said, okay, JJ can handle this. I could toss him in there with Brett Favre a little bit with the ones. That's what it's, because he showed the talent and he showed he could grasp the playbook. So that's number one. Sheduer, show you can grasp this playbook. Once you show you can grasp this playbook and you show your talent and they see your talent's going to be better than probably all 4 of those dudes, which means when training camp comes, if you have a really good OTAs, you earn more reps. I'm not saying you earn a starting job right now in OTAs because that's impossible, but you earn more reps. So now they know, Sheduer understands the playbook. He knows how to get in and out of certain checks. We can toss him in there with Jerry Jeudy and the ones to see what he can do because he showed us in OTAs that he can do this. So he earned more reps. And once you earn more reps coming out of OTAs, once you get into training camp, right, now you show what you can do in pads. Because let's not act like just because the quarterback's put on pads in training camp, it becomes this full-on team session. It's still 7-on-7 for them. You cannot get close to them. This is not a receiver or a running back and a linebacker. So it's still, so right now, what they're doing right now is the same, just with pads on. It's the same. So if you're showing your talent now, you're going to earn more reps once training camp comes. And when you earn more reps in training camp, then you can be able to try to win that starting job.
All right, so I think that was a good breakdown right there, what Sheduer needs to do. Just him getting acclimated with the playbook, him understanding the calls, him being able to take him into the huddle. Those are the things that you want to see from him. We know he can throw the ball. We know he can make all the throws. We know he has great touch. We love his decision-making. All those things are set. Now it's all the, just the behind-the-scenes things that'll help you grow into getting more opportunities. That's what it's about. You need an opportunity to get on the team. Now you're on the team. The next opportunity is you got to put in the work and show them that you can handle the workload on the back end, which is learning the playbook, commanding the huddle, things like that. Once you get those things down, then you can get more opportunities as time progresses. So that's the only clip I'm going to play from there. I played that for a very specific reason, just to understand the path of what Sheduer needs to do to keep things going in the right direction, which they already are. So that was the national media on Sheduer. So now we're going to go local. And this is where the local media, some people would say that the local media has been, the Cleveland media has been biased towards Sheduer. They wanted more Dylan Gabriel. They view him more highly. So now as we see more, we hear more, the local media is kind of changing how they're talking about Sheduer, Dylan Gabriel, and Kenny Pickett. And I always thought Kenny Pickett was going to be a backup. And I even gave a reason. So a lot of people say, people just don't like Kenny Pickett, but they don't say why. My reason for not liking Kenny Pickett in this situation is because I watched him when he was in Pittsburgh. I watched him not be on time, and I watched him hesitant to throw the ball. So many situations, he was hesitant. Kevin Stefanski's offense is all about timing. Timing, intermediate throws, that 15-yard range is where you can live really good in a Kevin Stefanski's offense. And Kenny Pickett struggled with that with the team where he was drafted in the first round, meaning he had all the reps. He had all the opportunities. He had everything geared towards him having success. And if you don't succeed in that situation, I don't know how you're going to come into a new situation and just jump ahead of other guys when you're learning a new system, learning new teammates, learning a new playbook, all those things. So there's even one of I believe it was Tommy Reese was speaking to the media, and someone asked him a question and said, hey, Kenny Pickett said it might take 2 years to pick up everything and feel fully comfortable going to a new team. And Tommy Reese kind of, walked it back a little bit, was saying it might not take that long. But if that's the way that the actual player is viewing it, how could I say that this is going to be the guy that's going to start in less than 100 days? I don't see it. So get into the next video. We have, this is everybody's favorite. This is going to be Mary Kay. It's going to be 2 parts of this video that I'm going to play. So let's get to it. Let's just listen to how the Cleveland media is speaking on Shedeur Sanders now. Let's get it.
Thought just overall he had a better day than Dylan had today. He completed more passes. He was more on point. In fact, in that 11-on-11 period, he threw a near touchdown. It was so close to Caden Davis. At first.
Yeah, she's going to go on and on about this pass towards the back of the touchdown, if it was a touchdown or not, because they're so infatuated with the stats. Just because they kind of, when they have a harder time breaking down what they're seeing, they just lean on the stats. So we're going to jump ahead. So you heard it there. She's now saying Sheduer looked better than Dylan Gabriel. Leading into this thing, the last couple of weeks, the last month or so, everybody knows that's not the tone she's had. So now I'm going to jump ahead. I got a spot that I want to get to for the next part of this video I want to play. So here it is. Let's go.
Feel like there is a pecking order. It does, but I will say, to add to what Mary Kay said about the 2 rookies, I thought today Kenny Pickett struggled a little bit more than he struggled last week. It felt like the ball was on the ground more. He had a couple of near picks as well during those team periods. So, yeah, it was interesting today just in terms of the dynamics of that room and who did well compared to last week. And, yes, it still seems like Kenny is at the top of that pecking order, but I do think it's noteworthy, and Joe Flacco to me just looked like.
See, that's the part I don't understand. So you start off saying Kenny is struggling more. He almost had a couple interceptions. More of his balls hit the ground, but you're still saying he's number 1 above even Joe Flacco, which I don't understand. How could it be? So if near picks, ball hitting the ground, struggling, and this is not. People were saying he struggled in the first open OTAs. So if this is 2 OTAs that have been open and both of them, from the first one to the second one, he's struggling more in the second one than in the first, how could you still say he's going to be number 1? It's not making sense to me. It's not adding up. But now they are at least willing to say, hey, these guys are struggling. And I think the reason they're willing to say that is because now you got stats tracking it. You got ESPN Cleveland putting the stats out. ESPN Cleveland is sending 4 people there to track all the passes, to track what these guys are doing. If you go back a couple weeks ago to the rookie minicamp, all of them said Dylan Gabriel looked better. They start putting videos out and people start questioning it. Now you see the shift starting to happen. The shift is happening right in front of you. They're leaning on the Joe Flacco looks the best, but Kenny Pickett is somehow ahead of him in the order. Now they're starting to say, hey, Dylan might be having some struggles. He's getting the extra reps, but he's starting to struggle. And then all of them are talking about, man, when you talk about who's throwing the best ball in camp, now all these people are starting to say Sheduer. So that's the first one. We took this thing national. Now we're breaking this thing down locally. So let's get to the next local clip of everybody's second favorite person in the media. We got Tony Grossi. Hopefully I got the right spot here.
Alluded to the best pass of the day. It was Shedeur Sanders. It's kind of a skinny post into the end zone in a red zone period to receiver Caden Davis. Put it right on his hands, and he brought it in. So that was the only touch.
That was the only touchdown that happened in 11-on-11. It was still red zone, but that was an 11-on-11 rep.
Yeah.
The rest were 7-on-7. Yes.
Yes. So.
So Chops, he had to make sure he made that clear, because when they're looking at these stats and they're talking about these touchdowns, last time they said all the touchdowns happened in 7-on-7 somewhere in the red zone. Now they're saying Chops made sure to correct it. Shedeur is the only one who threw a touchdown in 11-on-11s. So you see, like, before we were getting just their view, not what was really happening. Now they are on their heels and making sure they put out exactly what happens. They're making sure they put out exactly what happens. So you see Chops, he's like, nah, we got to correct this. So I believe it's a little bit more we're going to hear from everybody's favorite, Tony Grossi.
That's pretty much it in a nutshell. If you would give the award for player of the OTA day, it'd probably be Denzel Ward, who's out there playing his heart out.
If you had to give one to a quarterback.
Chops again. Chops not, hey, we not letting you bail out. We not letting you say Denzel Ward. We not letting you take the easy way out. He's going to say, if you're giving this to a quarterback, put that pressure on him, Chops.
Quarterback, who would you give it to?
Well, I mentioned Sheduer had the best pass of the day. To be honest with you, I don't think there was a lot of separation there. I just don't think there was. Early on it was, because I thought Gabriel started slowly, but he finished up kind of strong.
From what I heard, and again, I kind of follow around the rookies, which is Sheduer and Gabriel. From what I heard from the 11-11, Gabriel and Pickett did have some troubles. Again, we're talking about Denzel Ward. Denzel Ward had a really good day, and then Flacco just wasn't getting reps in that period.
Yeah.
So y'all see, you see how he gave Grossi an opportunity to just come out and say it. Grossi wouldn't do it. He couldn't do it. Grossi said nothing about Kenny Pickett struggling. Chop said, nah, I got to put this out here, man. It is what it is. And then he gave him an out by saying, well, you know, it's Denzel Ward. And then he said, so Grossi even said, well, Gabriel didn't look good at first, but then he kind of cleaned it up at the end. Why are you twisting what it was? Because clearly both of y'all was there. Chop said he's watching more of the rookies, and he's saying, even though I watched the rookies, he's saying, yeah, what I was told is Kenny Pickett struggled, and then also he made it clear Gabriel was struggling too. So now it's almost like forcing them to say good things that Shedeur is doing in the media, because it's so different than how things were. When you didn't have stats, when you didn't have all these videos, Tony Grossi, Mary Kay being some of the only ones there, you got to listen to what they're saying. And now you're starting to realize that they're not really breaking this thing down based on what's happening, even with everybody starting to see it. Mary Kay's not the one that said Kenny Pickett struggled. It was the other chick who said Kenny Pickett struggled. Tony Grossi didn't say, he said Dillon Gabriel started off slow. Chop said, nah, Dillon Gabriel was struggling, Kenny Pickett was struggling. So that's why we're getting all these stats. I did a video that I released, I don't even know what day I released so many videos now, but how did we get here? We got here with all this scrutiny because there's so much attention and so many people want to hear how Sheduer is doing because they already feel like he's been done wrong. Then you have the army of haters who want to see Sheduer fail. So it's so many eyes on everything that's happening. They got to change their tone. They got to be able to really break down football. And I said that Tony Grossi was more of a reporter. When Tony Grossi was catching all that pushback, when he was speaking on rookie camp, he said, I'm just giving my analysis. All right. If you give me your analysis, then we got to grade you differently. We just put Mary Kay in the reporter group. She going to repeat some stuff that she heard other people say. But if you put yourself in this analysis group, then analysis means you're taking what you're seeing, you're breaking it down, and you understand what you're seeing. But why are you so hard? Why are you so hesitant to say when you see Sheduer doing well? Or the flip side is, why are you so hesitant to say that Gabriel struggled and Pickett struggled? It's other people who are there that got to say those things. And that happened with Mary Kay and with Tony Grossi. Both of them got stuck in a position where they couldn't really just come out and say, man, he struggled. They danced all around it. So let's get to the next video clip I got for y'all. Let's see what we got. This is another one. This is local. So we went national. Now we going local. So if y'all watching the flow of the show, we started off, we went other sports. We went other people that cover sports. We went other teams. Then we brought it in. We broke down the Coach Prime situation. Then from the Coach Prime situation, we went to the Shedeur situation. And then we went national. Now we're going local. So as you see, as we chop it down further and further, the national people are saying, because there's more athletes and former NFL players in the national, they're saying, hey, he got a chance. He's doing what he's supposed to do. The local people are very hesitant to just even call what they're seeing. And then we got another one. So we got Earl the Pearl and we have Spencer German. I think Earl is going to ask him a very direct question and watch what we get from it.
And there were some other things that I guess were maybe caught my attention in a negative way.
So I watch everything on super fast speed because I got to get through so much when I'm putting together a show. So let me slow that down.
Get into as well.
All right, let's start with the quarterback competition. You know, we had Mary Kay Cabot said she thought that Shedeur Sanders kind of stood out above Dillon Gabriel today. Daniel Oyefusi said he thought that Shedeur Sanders had a strong day. Daryl Ryder, we know him very well. He thought that, you know, though it's OTAs, he said it's unfair to judge it, but he thought Shedeur had a stronger day than Dillon Gabriel as well. I want to know which O2 I saw.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Shedeur sort of started his 11-on-11 reps during the red zone portion of practice. He like boots out to his left and he slips. And it was kind of like this funny moment to sort of start his 11-on-11 reps where it was like, oh, well, all right, we're off to a rough start. But he quickly turned it around, I thought. Looked really good, looked decisive throwing the football. He had a really nice play to Caden Davis in the back of the end zone that after further review, I think all of us in the media decided he didn't quite get the second foot in. But it was a nice throw, and it was almost that touchdown. It was where you want it to be for a
Gotta work on that footwork. Gotta work on that footwork.
100%. It was not Shedeur's fault. I don't think that it was a touch. It wasn't a touchdown. But so yeah,
how come so much emphasis on if that actual play was a touchdown? So you notice the ones who don't want to speak as much on what's actually happening, they are harping on these small little things. Mary Kay wanted to harp on it. We just skipped forward. I didn't even put y'all through listening to Mary Kay harping on it. Tony Grossi was harping on some things. Tony Grossi just said Shedeur had the best throw. He was hesitant to say other things. And then Spencer is saying he starts off with, oh, he lost his foot and he slipped at the beginning, which is inconsequential to, I guess, what happened throughout the day. So I don't know why we needed that. Then he went into, oh, he did really well with his throws, all the good things. And then he made this big deal the same way Mary Kay did. They make this big deal about if the receiver got a second foot in or not, which ended up being like a toe on the line. So I don't know why they take these weird approaches. They're very hesitant to just say Shedeur had a good day. It's very easy. Earl even set it up where he gave you the people who also were there who said Shedeur had a good day and he looked better than Gabriel on that day. And then he still fumbled it. So let's see if there's anything else we need to hear from his response.
he had a couple really nice throws. I thought he navigated the offense well when he was out there. And it is important to keep in mind, like, he was pretty much out there with third and fourth stringers. So he's still sort of getting those reps with guys down the depth chart.
So let me ask y'all a question. So if you are the quarterback and you are throwing to third and fourth stringers, aren't the third and fourth stringers still going against third and fourth stringers? So aren't they going against comparable competition? Shedeur isn't running on them. He's not a running quarterback. He's throwing the ball. So you can easily judge or grade how he's doing. He's going against comparable competition on both sides. It's not like he's throwing to the ones and they're going against the fours. He's throwing to the threes and fours, and the threes and fours are going against the threes and fours on defense. So it's just weird where they decide to highlight certain parts of it where that doesn't make any sense. These things are inconsequential. Every opportunity they get to try to downplay some of what he does, they take it. But if you ask that next level question, okay, he's throwing it to the threes and fours. Who are they going against? The threes and fours on the other side? So isn't that comparable competition between the wide receiver and the DB? I don't know why, and it's a few people since I've been, just digging a little bit more into the local media. There's been a few people who have been covering it that way, and I don't understand the point of what they're trying to get at. If you got the ones going against the threes, talk to me. Let's have a conversation. When you got threes and fours going against threes and fours, adding that point, it means nothing. It's air. So let's see if there's anything else you need to finish.
Chart, but I've been saying all along, like it's not about the order of the quarterbacks right now. It's more about what they're doing with those reps and if they're making the most of them. And I thought Sheduer did that today. I thought Dylan had a couple nice plays. He had a really nice touchdown early on in the 11-on-11 portion, but I also think he had some rough ones where he was like missed the mark on a couple passes, either high and outside or just, off target a little bit. Now, it's important to keep in mind, they do like this modified 7-on-7 where it's like the offense has an offensive line in front of them, but
So, we've been watching this. We watch Mary Kay say Sheduer looked better than Dylan. We watched Tony Grossi not want to say Sheduer looked better, but Chops didn't let him off the hook, and he said that Dillon Gabriel started out rough and ended it better than he ended with 707s. We have Spencer, who was there. He said he started out better, then it went rough. So this is why the stats got to come out. This is why the videos got to come out. These people are looking at the same thing, and they're coming up with completely different things of what they saw. Everybody said he struggled at the start. He's saying he struggled at the start. He started off good, then he struggled. Then he's going into this long thing of what the offensive line was doing in the modified 11-on-11s, which, remember last week when I told y'all, it wasn't like Sheduer. They didn't have intentions on giving Sheduer 11-on-11s. It was like more 9-on-9s. And he was the one who made the point and say, it's just the facts. He didn't get any 11-on-11 reps. It was actually Spencer who said that. And I pushed back on it, and then Zach Jackson said something different. So then everybody said, Zach Jackson, he's a homer for Sheduer. So you know what I did? No Zach Jackson this whole week. We didn't break down nothing with Zach Jackson when we went local. And now Spencer, the same thing that he was saying was a negative because the Browns didn't give Sheduer any 11-on-11s, he's explaining how Gabriel got those same type of reps that Sheduer got in the first OTAs that he saw. It's not adding up. That's why I'm going to keep saying it. That's why we getting all these stats. That's why we getting all these videos. We getting all this stuff because none of this stuff adds up. And they're seeing the same thing, and they are saying completely different things. So let's see if it's any more we got to listen to this.
The offensive line isn't really like engaging all that much, and they use offensive linemen on the other side of the offensive line as defensive linemen. And the whole point is like they're trying to get the quarterback to drop back and feel that there's something in front of them, but there's not like a lot of pressure, and they're supposed to just kind of read the defense. Your corners are out there, your linebackers are out there, get a sense of what your progressions are, what you're trying to sort of accomplish. And so in those drills, like I thought he went through his progressions well. It was just he was missing the mark with some of those passes. So I think there was some room for improvement there, but I thought Dylan had a pretty solid day. What also caught my attention from a quarterback standpoint was just the fact that you didn't see a lot of Joe Flacco today. And I think that's mostly by design. I don't think it necessarily is a testament to.
So they dancing, man. They dancing. So just like the guy said earlier, this is the slowest developing take on this situation. That's cool. I'm not trying to be fast and first. I'm trying to be right. So when they dug in so much to the Sheduer situation and made such a big deal about him not getting 11-on-11s, now they got to come back and they got to explain the same thing that we said was a knock on Sheduer last week happened this week to Dillon Gabriel. So what you made a negative wasn't a negative. Somebody in my TikTok comments was saying intent doesn't matter. Intent matters because when you're reporting, the reason why intent matters is because you change how something is viewed based on your intentions. If your intentions are to say Sheduer is stuck at the bottom of the depth chart and he's number 4 and he can't move up the depth chart, and you use the fact that he didn't take any 11-on-11 snaps as a negative, now you're explaining the same thing happened to Dylan and you're not explaining it as a negative. That shows why intent matters, because it's negative for him and positive for him, and it's the same situation. That's why I wait to get more information before I'm making statements about situations. That's why I wait. I don't care about being first and wrong. All these guys, now they're coming back and they're saying something that's in conflict with what they said the week before. How often, if you ever watch me, how often are you watching me and you hear me say one thing one week and then the next week I'm coming back and I'm saying something that's in conflict with what I said. And I got to kind of explain it and say it in public just so I can say, hey, but I did go out there and say it. I'm not trying to end up in those situations. A lot of people are ending up in those situations. That's what I'm trying to avoid. I'm trying to be different than the normal media that people are used to. The normal media just feeds y'all so many things that aren't true, and they got to come back and try to clean it up. We got Stephen A. Smith still saying Tyrese Halliburton not a superstar. I remember Stephen A. Smith saying superstars, one of the criteria is they got to show up in the clutch moments. Now when Tyrese Halliburton has been the most clutch throughout this playoffs, you're saying, yeah, being clutch is good, but they're not a superstar. And then who do you go to? The first thing you go to is you go to LeBron, you go to Steph, who are, I would say they're on a different level of superstar. But if that's the case, it's only really Steph, LeBron, maybe KD is up there. Who else would you say is a superstar? Because Stephen A. was also trying to say Brunson is a superstar. So if you're going to say Brunson is a superstar, based on what Halliburton has done in these playoffs, he has to be a superstar too. So that's what I'm trying to avoid. So will my takes, they're going to take some time. You got to let that thing marinate. You got to be patient. This is not a microwave show. We're not trying to be first and wrong and fast. We're trying to be right. That's the difference. So that's the last thing I got from Spencer. We got what we need to get there. So we're going to get into comment creeping. So I am going to change the topic here. It's the only time I had to change it tonight. So let me get this topic changed. Let me get in here. And this is something that I wanted to add to the show because a lot of times I don't think that people get to see what people say to me in my TikTok comments and how, let me adjust this over so I don't want to cover up the date. So I don't know if this is something that people notice, but I keep the date right here on my shows just as a visual reference for myself, and I also keep it for other people. So when you want to come back and look at clips or see when I said something, I put the date right there so it's there so we all know when it was said. So we just keep that visual reference there. But comment creeping, the reason why I added this was because we had people, we're going to actually take this down. We're going to take down Stefanski for now. Where we at? All right, we're going to take Stefanski down. Let's get comment creeping up on the screen. It should be here. There we go. All right, so comment creeping, I added this because I want people to see how people are missing a point and people are just saying things without really listening to my videos. So this first one here, I might have to unlock this to make sure it's large enough on the screen. So last week, I really went into how I believe Sheduer fell to the Browns and the Browns lucked into Shedeur, and how after Andrew Berry had to sleep on taking Sheduer, he wanted to hedge his bets. So this is a person commenting, and I'm saying, hey, how often do teams find their guy and then draft another quarterback? And I said it doesn't happen that often, which means if you can tell me the 1 or 2 times that it happened, that means it doesn't happen that often because you actually remember when it happens. If I asked you, tell me the year a quarterback wasn't drafted in the first round, you would really have to work to find that because it's not that common for a quarterback not to go in the first round. So you see the difference. So one is a regular occurrence, happens majority of the time. One is a rare occurrence, and that's why you can actually remember it and go to it. So that's the backstory for this. But this person says 2 QBs have been taken before. The last time this really happened that people talk about, it was RG3 Kirk Cousins. And I say, if you can name it, that means it's the exception to the rule. Do teams draft 2 QBs often? And Free Runner was there. Free Runner, shout out to him. He's saying, hey, you're proving this point. That's what I'm telling him. You proved the point. Let's go to the next one. So this is somebody else on that same subject. And he said Dallas, Aikman and Washington, RG3 and Cousins. And I said, so you named 2 people in 2 situations that happened in the last 30 plus years. It's the exception, not the rule. So when we speaking on things, we don't need to get into the exceptions to the rules. It doesn't happen enough to matter. So a lot of times I'm going to shut stuff down with that's the exception. I'm not going to dig into why it's the exception, but figure it out. It's the exception. So let's get to the next one. I'm going to adjust this. We want to go to the top. So this is back to my video on intent. So this is a Steelers fan. I don't know why they're here, but I guess everybody's here for Sheduer. So this Steelers fan, actually, we're going to save that one. I want to use that one last. Okay. This is somebody else. They say, y'all not to stop making excuses for Sheduer. On what planet do you go into a professional interview being unprofessional and not taking it seriously? And I said, so you believe this anonymous source blindly? Have you heard of teams putting out smoke screens during the draft process? If you go back to when we showed Florio, what Florio's beef was with the anonymous people, and that's when I said, hey, I'm the little guy. Look at the big guys who are saying this too. Florio saying, hey, Coach Prime and Sheduer got reason to be upset. So look at the big guys when they say it, because maybe, you don't believe how I view things because you say, oh, you're not a big enough content creator. Okay, look at the bigger guys. They're saying the same thing after me. So let's see. Do I have another one? Yeah, we got another one. This person said, the NFL is a business. Nobody owes any explanation as to why they don't want to you. Why are you making it a racial issue? 70% of the NFL is black. The first pick was black. Shad, I guess they mean Sheduer, is mid, and his father brings I guess that's a circus. No team will put up with this circus for a mid QB. Just stop your racism. So I'm just going to break something down for y'all. I don't bring race into situations because you diminish situations where race was actually involved. So I don't bring race in. Unless we got some concrete evidence where they say we're not taking this person because of the color of their skin, you're not going to hear me say anything about race. These people who hate Sheduer, they're having a conversation with themselves because usually it has nothing to do with what even being said. And this is one of those situations where this person just doesn't like Sheduer. Cool, I'm not saying you gotta like Sheduer, but this is like a standard answer that happens. I've seen this a bunch of different times, and I'm like, where are you even coming from with this? And in a longer thread to that one, I was like, hey, when did I say race? And somebody else even said, hey, he never brought in race. So now we're gonna get to the one that I skipped. Now this one. This is a Steelers fan talking about Cleveland Browns stuff. Go figure. Say, the only QB not to take a rep in 11 on 11 is Sanders. The Browns are such a trash organization, laugh out loud. I'm going to enjoy watching him fail. And I said, wrong. Kevin Stefanski said at the Browns golf outing, Sheduer has had 11 on 11 reps. And I said, watch your Steelers and Mason Rudolph. He said, no, he didn't. Literally said on ESPN, he hasn't. You clearly know nothing about football, and I hate the Browns. Do better, bro. So the reason why I saved that is because I actually told him in later responses that I'm going to play it during my live show. Kevin Stefanski actually saying Sheduer has taken 11 on 11 reps. So that's why I saved that one for last. This is for you, Steelers fan. And also, ESPN is not plugged into what's happening in Cleveland like local people are because they report on so many other things. They will get it wrong often, and they led you astray here. But that's okay. We're going to fix this. We're going to clean this up for you. I got you.
Like he's doing right now, he's focusing on putting one good day in front on top of another.
Kevin, has Sheduer taken some 11 on 11 reps when we're not out there, and do you think that we will see some of those on Wednesday when we do come out again?
Yes, and I would say there's a lot of work that gets done when you guys aren't out there, believe it or not. But even that's, and I say that, Mary Kay, even in a meeting or in a walkthrough, just our guys are getting exposed to a lot.
I know a day on the golf course is probably fun.
So Steelers fan, I played that just for you. I broke it down to you. I put in the comments exactly when Stefanski was asked that question. I gave you his answer to the question. You chose to believe ESPN over somebody who was watching this thing closely. For you, my friend, I'm going to need you to hold this L. That's the last of Comment Creeping. That's the end of the show. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate everybody for tapping in. This has been a great show. This show is going to have to be released on YouTube in 2 parts. So what I'm going to do is I normally release at 11 o'clock. I did about 30 minutes of the show previously before I lost connection to TikTok. So what I'll do is I'll put out the larger portion of the show at 11, and then I'll release the shorter portion of the show at 2 p.m. So it'll be 2 releases tomorrow. I'll make sure I get the timestamps for y'all, but only because we did have that technical issue. That's how I'll release it. So it'll be 2 releases tomorrow, 11 and 2. So be looking out for that. I want to say thank you for everybody who tapped in. Thank you for everybody who sent comments. Even shout out to the guy who thought I was taking too long on the slowest developing take, which if you look at the theme of the show, do you want to be first or do you want to be right? Do you want to be fast and wrong or slow and right? You got to ask yourself that. It's always more to it. Nobody else is breaking it down the way I'm breaking it down. Nobody else is taking the topic that they were talking about, going back to the original topic and going back and showing you how wrong they were. So it's going to take time. Somebody got to do it, and I'm about to put a task. So shout out to y'all. Thank you for being here. Catch me next week, Saturday, Off the Record D, 7 p.m. Peace.